The ship Endurance sails from London in August of 1914, headed for Buenos Aires. Behind the ship, Europe has been folding into a war that will dominate the continent for the next few years, while claiming 20 million lives and as many wounded. Ahead of the ship, pain, suffering, destruction, and ice. The HMS Endurance was built in Norway with oak, fir, and greenheart, with an 85-inch keel between 18 and 30-inch sides. The ship has 3 masts, technically making it a barquentine. It has a 350 horsepower steam engine capable of 10 knots, or 11 miles per hour. Though not built well for the open ocean, the Endurance is, in every aspect, an ice crusher. It heads to South Georgia, and from there to Vassal Bay, Antarctica, where the party will leave the ship and head across the continent to the McMurdo Sound, attempting the first trans-Antarctic journey. In Buenos Aires, Ernest Shackleton joins the ship. Shackleton is a seasoned Arctic explorer, having gone on 2 expeditions to Antarctica already. He is thoughtful, determined, and insistent that the British be the first to make a land crossing over the Antarctic. He is the leader of this expedition. The ship then heads to South Georgia with 27 men and 1 stowaway. After a month, they set sail again for the Antarctic. 2 days later, they encounter ice. 2 days after encountering the first ice, the HMS Endurance stops for the first time. Though it comes free of the ice, its progress is now slowed to a crawl. The Endurance picks up speed again and comes up on the 100-foot walls of Coates Land, where it is once again slowed by ice. The ship is stuck fast. Attempts are made to ram the ship through the ice, but when those fail, the crew is dispatched to cut through the ice with axes. After 10 days of ramming attempts and constant cutting, orders are given to make preparations for wintering on the ice. The men trade their axes for daily chores and caring for their dogs. They also took to hunting seals to replenish their depleting stores. On August 1st, the ice begins to break up, and as it does so, it begins to stack under the Endurance, which lists to port. The ice pressure increases, causing constant noise from the wooden sides of the ship. And on October 24th, the ship is punctured and water begins to flow in. The supplies and lifeboats are transferred onto the ice, and 3 days later, the ship is abandoned. Several more trips are made to retrieve supplies. With the ship no longer being a viable option, plans are made to move out in hopes that they can reach Robertson Island, Snow Island, or Paulette Island, and from there reach Wilhelmina Bay. On the 30th of October, they begin the journey across the ice, dragging 2 of the lifeboats behind them. But the ice is jagged and rough, making it almost impossible to move the boats. On November 1st, the march is abandoned, only 2 miles from where the Endurance is stuck in the ice. The crew makes camp again and names this place Ocean Camp. On November 21st, the HMS Endurance, built specifically for journeys through ice, is overcome and sinks from sight. On December 23rd, another journey is planned toward the Western Islands. The conditions remain difficult, and after 2 days and 7 miles, the journey is abandoned again. A new camp is set up, known as Patience Camp. Expeditions are now sent back to Ocean Camp to recover supplies and to bring the third lifeboat. On March 17th, the ice drift brings the company to within 60 miles of Paulet Island, but the broken ice is too dangerous to take the small ships through. Mount Haddington can now be seen in the distance. On April 8th, the ice breaks up, and the party is on a small triangle of ice. At 1 p.m. the next day, the boats are launched towards Elephant Island. That night, after going to sleep in tents on a floe, Shackleton feels uneasy and gets up at 11 p.m. when the floe beneath splits directly under one of the tents. A splash is heard. Shackleton rushes forward and removes the tent to find a man still in his sleeping bag, wriggling in the water. Shackleton grabs the bag and pulls it from the water, and a moment later the halves of the floe come back together. Another crack appears between the men, and a rope is thrown, and the men pull the two halves together. All the men get across into their boats except Shackleton. The boats are launched and Shackleton is picked up. They finish the night camping on the floe, but not sleeping anymore. They launch the boats again in the morning. On April 14th, after 5 days, the crew is near Elephant Island. A suitable landing place is found, and the crew finds themselves on land for the first time in almost a year and a half. The crew is now 800 miles from South Georgia, where their journey began. Shackleton prepares one of the lifeboats for a long journey, and on April 24th, with Shackleton commanding the boat, it is launched and heads towards South Georgia, leaving most of the crew behind. After 16 days on the turbulent seas, the boat lands on the southern portion of South Georgia. From there, it is decided that the party will go overland to reach Hisvik Harbor. On May 19th, the party makes its attempt and spends 36 hours crossing icy mountains and even riding a sledge down one. On May 20th, the party descends into Hisvik Harbor, where Shackleton is met with surprise, having been believed to be dead. Shackleton immediately begins to form a rescue party for the men on Elephant Island. They make their first attempt on May 22nd, but they are rebuffed by over 70 miles of ice. Twice more rescue parties are sent and are stopped by the ice. A better ship is obtained, and on August 25th, the rescue party heads for Elephant Island. On August 30th, they arrive, and within an hour, the rest of the crew is off the island and in the ship. In Shackleton's absence, the camp had suffered. One man had his toes amputated after they had been frozen on the journey to the island. Hunger had also been a big problem. Penguins had been hunted and eaten, but they had soon been depleted. On January 10th, 1917, after 2 years of being stuck on the ice, the party boards a ship named the Aurora and heads home. They return to a world in turmoil. The war that had been threatening when they had left now engulfs the continent. On January 25th, 1922, Shackleton dies of a heart attack on South Georgia while planning another mission to Antarctica. After 100 years of being lost, on March 5th, 2022, the Endurance is found once again.